All right, good evening, everybody. Brian, Glenn, Liz, Willis, live here in Atlanta, Georgia for David Perdue's watch party as it's election night here in America, and we're here to cover it.
Yeah, Georgia, a highly contested state for the primaries and a lot of important races that we're here to watch today. So we are at David Perdue's election victory night coverage. However, there are numbers of other races that we want to watch as well. We're looking for the Senate race. Yep. We want to see Herschel Walker take the lead in that one, and hopefully we will soon. There's also a number of congressional races, attorney general as well, insurance commissioner. So we've got a handful of those, and Brian and I are going to be pulling those up and bringing them to you shortly. If you see us looking at our phones tonight, please allow that to happen.
Yeah, the phone is our friend tonight.
Phone is our very best friend. It looks like right now there's roughly just 1% of votes in. So right now, Kemp does have a very strong lead against David Perdue. But again, that is with 1% of the votes in. Polls closed here in Georgia at 7 p.m. today. If you were in line at that time, you are still allowed to vote. So it's possible people are still voting. It's very early on, but we're going to bring it to you live.
Well, Liz, you know, they have early voting extremely long here in this state, if I'm not mistaken. So I know there are huge turnouts for early voting. I don't know if you have any personal experiences you want to share with us, but I know I had some friends that live here in the area. They said, my goodness, it was a ton of people on the early voting.
So I voted today.
Oh, nice.
I am a day of voter. I knew that I knew I would be here in town because I was covering this race, so y'all weren't going to send me anywhere else, and I wanted to kind of see what it was like, and it was pretty empty in there, but that makes sense because what I've heard, and this is really interesting, but that early voting turnout today shattered records for Georgia. So it's what is that going to tell us? Is this going to be just a massive early announcement? Are we going to get numbers in really quick because of those early votes, or is this going to go late into the night? And what type of energy are we seeing here in Georgia? Is the MAGA base going to come out and show support for President Trump and the candidates that he endorsed? Yeah,
you know, to your point, I mean, the numbers are huge, and I'm kind of a day of voter as well, Liz. It is fun. I think you're really playing out your patriotic duty voting on election day. But to your point, here, big turnout in Texas as well. And I was just talking to my wife a few minutes ago, who drove by one of the polling places, and which, by the way, Kim Paxton is up in a runoff election there in Texas. So we'll bring some of those results to you tonight. So much going on, and people, to your point you said earlier, MAGA base is showing up here in Georgia, and I think that's going to be the case across the country.
I sure hope so, Brian. There are some incredible people that we've had the opportunity to meet, David Perdue being one of them.
That was a long time. It was like a year ago when Trump endorsed Perdue, very early on.
Over a year ago, we were actually at rallies, and President Trump, David Perdue was one of his special guests, and I remember him saying, "Run, David, run." He really wanted him to get in here, get in the governor's race. Vernon Jones was already in the governor's race, so it's really been a GOP kingmaker thing to watch as a Georgia citizen. Basically, he really encouraged Perdue to join the race. Vernon was pushed to District 10 instead.
Kind of shuffle around a little bit,
Shuffling is a good word. And so now we're also going to be watching District 10. That's where Vernon Jones is running against the largest challenger would be Mike Collins. It's kind of rural area of Georgia, so it's going to be really interesting to see. And President Trump has it's public knowledge, he just does not want Kemp to win. I mean, he's come out and endorsed David Perdue so heavily, including today. Another endorsement came out today, just in case you missed it, so I'll pull that up and read it to our viewers in a second. But President Trump has endorsed David Perdue wholeheartedly, 100%. So we'll see. Let's see what that endorsement means to the people of Georgia today. And what is that going to mean for midterms? That's
true, and to your point about Kemp, Kemp was one of the reasons. How many times we hear President Trump talk about Brian Kemp and get him out of office? He doesn't like him. But it was really interesting how Kemp really didn't attach himself to Trump and said, I know Trump doesn't like me, but I don't dislike him, and I don't dislike his policies. I think it's very interesting to point out that Brian Kemp did not necessarily separate him from Trump, despite having Trump tell him.
One of his flaws is that he's almost too politically correct. When it comes to doing something that might alienate him or upset a few people, he's very people pleaser.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I don't like about him, but maybe a lot of people do.
Yeah.
It's maybe also why I'm drawn towards President Trump.
Yeah.
I like someone that's just going to go out there and fight for us, whether people like it or not, to do what's right. Kemp, I've had so many unique experiences with people this week say, why are you voting for Perdue? Kemp is fine. Okay, Kemp might be, quote, fine, but he's not doing anything memorable or remarkable. He's just like a placebo effect almost.
And really, after the election, Kemp made no attempt to even look into the voter discrepancies here in Georgia. And Liz, it was interesting, on my flight here this afternoon, I was able to talk to the people next to me, and we were talking about what's going on in Georgia. They don't know anybody who was voting for Brian Kemp, which I thought was really interesting. Despite what some of the early polls say, is that Kemp has this double-digit lead.
We have to know not to trust polls.
Yeah.
But right now it is saying that Kemp is going to just create just a landslide victory over Perdue. We'll see. I'm anxious. I'm anxious of so many of these races. I want to see how Mike Collins does in 10. I want to see how Marjorie Taylor Greene does.
Yeah.
I want to see how Herschel Walker does.
And what's interesting, real quick, let's talk about Herschel Walker. You have not seen that much from Herschel. He has not done a whole lot of rallies or press conferences or debates, and actually have been kind of criticized for staying away from maybe getting into the weeds with some of his opponents. I actually think it's a smart move to do that because, you know, the left-leaning press are looking for whatever reason for you to misstate something.
He already has a target on his back.
He already has a target on his back, so I don't think it does him any justice to get too far in the weeds on stuff. They know his agenda. They know what he stands for. And they know that Herschel Walker is just a proud American. And, of course, he's a legend here in Georgia.
He's a legend.
So,
I think maybe they just know.
Yeah.
I'm confident in that race. I feel like there's no one really on that same level that's even contesting against Herschel Walker. I think there's a lot of support for him as the GOP nominee, whereas I think that the Georgia voters are really split between Kemp and Perdue. So Kemp and Perdue is really the one that I am...
And we got Candace Taylor in there. Let's not maybe take anything away from her. I know that she's run a very grassroots campaign here in Georgia, and she's been across the state, and she's been calling out both Perdue and Brian Kemp on stuff, and so we'll see where she ends up at the end of the night.
And a lot of our friends have come out and supported her, endorsed her. Mike Lindell supports her and thinks that she would be a great governor for Georgia. So we'll see. Anything could happen tonight. I just got a text message that said Herschel's doing great.
Wonderful.
That makes sense. Georgia loves Herschel Walker. And Raffensperger, our current Georgia Secretary of State right now, who is a big no-no with President Trump, he is tied roughly with Jody Heiss, who is competing against him. Jody Heiss is the Trump-endorsement candidate who is running for Georgia Secretary of State. And for those who are kind of unfamiliar, one of the most important positions when it comes to election integrity, monitoring elections, running elections, is that position, the Secretary of State. So it's very important that we get someone in there that cares about election integrity. That is why President Trump fought so hard for Jody Heiss. So that is crucial, so crucial, almost as, if not more important than the Senate race or the gubernatorial race. Secretary of State for Georgia, eyes are on it tonight.
Liz, I can't say any better than what you just did, and that goes to, Doug Mastriano even said, if it's shifting eyes real quickly to Pennsylvania, that position is appointed by the governor, and that's why it was so important for him to win that race and to change things around Pennsylvania. So good point there on that race. That is a very important position here in the state of Georgia.
Absolutely. And I want to talk to you guys, too, about the provision or the ballot that I was able to vote on today. It had some really interesting topics. Going to get to that in 30 seconds. You're going to like it. In the meantime, I'm going to quickly read the, in case you missed it, endorsement from President Trump of David Perdue that went out today. David Perdue is a conservative fighter who isn't afraid of the radical left and is the only candidate in Georgia who can beat the Stacey, the hoax, Abrams in November. Brian Kemp has failed Georgia. He caved to Stacey Abrams before the 2020 election and allowed massive election fraud to take place. The signing of the Stacey Abrams-backed consent decree, so stupidly giving her and the Democrats everything they wanted, was a monumental mistake for not only Georgia, but also for our nation. Kemp has been a very weak governor. The liberals and rhinos have run all over him on election integrity and more. More importantly, he can't win because the MAGA base, which is enormous, will never vote for him. We need strong leaders who will fight, and time is running out. David Perdue will eliminate the income tax, secure the elections, defend the Second Amendment, support our great farmers, get crime in Atlanta and other places under control, take care of our vets, put parents back in charge of their schools. David Perdue and Herschel Walker, who I've already strongly endorsed, will make an unstoppable team for the state of Georgia. Trump supporters will turn out to vote for these great leaders in big numbers. David Perdue has my complete and total endorsement.
Yeah, and when you get an endorsement by the president, that means a lot, and hopefully that transpires tonight. We're going to pause right here. We want to kind of set the scene. Yes, we are live here in Atlanta, Georgia at the David Perdue watch party. It is a very tight room in here. A lot of media attention is here. At least I'm assuming you get friends and family. It is open to the public, but they will close that off as soon as the occupancy has been reached. Now, the other major story that everyone is talking about right now, and Liz, and I don't think we can probably go any further than to stop and talk about right now, is the loss of life that we saw in South Texas today in Uvalde, Texas. I'm getting an update. 18 children and 3 adults now have been confirmed killed in that tragic shooting in Uvalde. So as those details come out, I know that here locally they're kind of bouncing back between this event and the election here in Georgia and Texas and throughout the country. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. And our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone down there. I know that that portion of Texas is just southwest of San Antonio, between San Antonio and the border. It's a border community for most, for practical purposes. They've dealt with a lot of crime and influx of immigrants coming across. So they've had a lot of stuff they've had to deal with. But this right here is the second, if I'm not mistaken, it's the second most loss of life in a school shooting. So we just want to stop and make sure that everyone knows that our thoughts and prayers for everyone involved.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah. You're right. I don't think I could have actually said it without crying, so I appreciate it.
I just happened to look over and I saw that number go up, and I know that people are thinking about it, and I know that if you're popping around looking for election coverage tonight, hopefully you stay with the right side, you're going to see this story come up, and so we wanted to make sure we push that out. Hey, before we go any further, though, our good friend over at Mike Lindell, he texted me the other day, a lot of excitement in the air. This guy is everywhere doing election integrity, and Liz, I've said this 1,000 times, that if it was not for Mike Lindell over at MyPillow, I'm not quite sure we're talking about election integrity in this country, because no one else brought it up but him.
We'd certainly not have any reform done on this topic.
Correct.
Whether it be getting rid of the machines, something that he's been fighting so hard for, one-day voting. What a concept. Yeah. Pennsylvania really couldn't handle that one. Bringing your ID, requiring an ID to vote. This man has been so supportive of election reform, and I've said it so many times, but God bless Mike Lindell. If you'd like to support him, please go to mypillow.com. He's working harder than ever before, not just on his company, but quite literally, like, he's a servant of the United States of America.
He is.
Well, he's a politician with no title, really, nothing to praise him or nothing fancy about it. He's doing work, just voluntarily. So if you want to support him, go to mypillow.com. Promo code RSBN will save you up to 66% off your entire order. Over 100 products to choose from. And they also have mystore.com, which is basically an entrepreneurial form to compete against Amazon. So it's really neat.
Yeah, I love it. I've bought a flag on there, and I've said it 1,000 times. Go order yourself a flag. I mean, go on mystore.com, search the kind of flag you want, whatever size you want, the pole you want, order it, and put that promo code. I don't know if they're still doing some of the select items that are buy one, get one. I don't know if they're still doing that yet, but why not go there and check it out anyway?
I think they are, so go check it out. It's until supplies run out. So mypillow.com, you'll see it. It'll be like buy one, get one. They have a lot of Memorial Day sales going on as well, so lots of great deals. Check it out. And we just want to say thank you to Mike Lindell for everything you've done for the country and for Right Side Broadcasting Network, because a portion of those sales comes back to help support us, and it keeps us being able to go around the country as well and send Brian from the great state of Texas down here to Georgia to help me out tonight on election evening.
Well, I love this kind of stuff, and when we started talking about this broadcast, I said, you know what? Let me jump in there, too, because there's a lot to talk about, and I'm glad we're here.
I'm glad you're here.
Well, I'm glad to be here, Liz, and you look stunning, by the way. I want people to be able to see your shoes later in the broadcast. Maybe we'll pan down and show that.
They were my mom's.
I do. Oh, that's very sweet. There is a lot of media presence here, and if you do notice, there will be some people probably walking behind us, walking aside to us, because we're in a tight area. So we want to be very transparent that if you see some people walking around,
if you see me hit someone,
this is not typically on the risers of the Trump.
It's similar to a Trump rally, how tight we are.
It is very similar to that.
We might be more crowded here than at a Trump rally. It's crazy. Small risers, a huge turnout for press.
Yeah.
A lot of press here to see it. So it looks like we're at like 4% roughly. Let me turn around.
Okay, that's fine. I was just going to look at the...
and it's roughly 70% Kemp to 30% David Perdue. But again, 4% in. So stay tuned with us. We are here for it.
Hang on, let's go ahead and go to the microphone. Let's see if we can listen in.
Are you excited? David Perdue in the Gold Dome? Yes or no? I did several interviews when I got up here with some of the local news. Here. Why am I here? Let me go down the timeline one more time while we're here. Senator Perdue, a very successful 6-year senator, did a very great job. He was there from the beginning with Donald John Trump. I know that to be true because I was on the plane with him in 2015 when it wasn't so popular to come on board to an outsider. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, David Perdue is still the outsider. He hasn't changed. The unfortunate thing that changed was the election. The unfortunate thing that changed when President Trump says, hey, Governor Kemp, would you consider looking at Doug Collins, a very successful congressman, proven everyone knew who he was a warrior on the fake Russian collusion delusion, which was a hoax, right or wrong? No, I'm going to go with someone else, blah, blah. Okay. Fast forwarding. You know, Governor Kemp, we got something going on called this guy named Mark Zuckerberg, who's taken close to $400 million and putting him in some of the battleground states right here in Georgia. And he went to an agreement with a third party, say, hey, you put these ballot boxes here in some of the key counties like Gwinnett, Fulton, Rockdale, Clayton, DeKalb, excuse me. Yes, ma'am, DeKalb. Oh, I can't do that. What do you mean you can't do that? Well, I just can't do that. You're the governor of the great state of Georgia. It's proven, and even Zuckerberg says, I don't think I'm going to do money. I'm not going to do that again. That's out there. Yes, there's inappropriate behavior that went on the election. Governor Kemp, can you please call the special session? No, I can't do that. I can't do that. Senator Perdue asked him, Sonny, every legislator, especially in the Trump administration, including myself, can you please call the special session of the 159 counties in this great state of Georgia? Let the senators, let the state reps come to the well and say, hey, I found this, or hey, I saw this. No, we can't do that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we're here. This is why we're here. I didn't want to be here. Kemp got the endorsement from President Trump in 2018. Just a simple request. And this is where we're at now. Ladies and gentlemen, we need David Perdue under the Gold Dome. And let me give you the reasons why again. He came in as the outsider. He abstained from pay to play, wouldn't take special interests or bad lobbying money. He came in and beat some very good candidates, if y'all remember, and became the U.S. Senator of the state of Georgia. Knocked out all these so-called long-term candidates that were in that field. And along comes Donald Trump at that same time in 2015, beat out 17, 18 other great candidates. Won the election, came into 2020. The shutdown, stay home, mail the ballots, unaccompanied, no chain of custody. This is all proven, ladies and gentlemen. Don't stop it. This is why we're here. And now, I look at the news the other day, I saw the city of Buckhead. Yes, I said city of Buckhead. For the folks who live in Buckhead, I'm sorry for y'all, because David Perdue says he wants you to have your cityhood. Just had a murder at Fogo de Chao. Fogo de Chao, ladies and gentlemen. And real quick, prayers for the murder massacre that's just going on in Texas right now. Metal detectors at Lenox Mall. I'm going to keep my powder dry, is the quote that Brian Kemp said. We don't need powder dry. Yes, if you want to have a cityhood, let's do it. Why are you stalling? I can tell you why. This reformation in the entire country right now, this is a living, breathing reformation as you speak. Ladies and gentlemen, this is history right here. All eyes are on Georgia and some other battleground states. Why? We're going to do whatever we can to stop Donald Trump's endorsements. Not the fact that some of these people just want to come in and serve and do the right thing of the will of the people. No, we don't want that because Trump said. Really? Last I checked, in the last 4 years, as Ronald Reagan said, I was 18 years old, stuffing envelopes for him in high school, dating myself. Are you better off now than you were before? Numbers don't lie. Georgia's not the only one across this great nation. We want people, men and women, to come in and serve without being beholding. We want people to come in. And you see what's going on right now. And for the press corps, and I said it on WSB, and a great news station here in Atlanta for many years, and my quote is, if we don't prevail, which I'm praying we will, if Brian Kemp miraculously does, we will not beat Stacey Abrams. Okay? David Perdue is the only one that can reconcile everyone and unite all of Georgia and all the Republicans, ladies and gentlemen. Quote, can I get a witness? So in closing, because Taylor, I promised I wouldn't talk too long, okay, if I'm long-winded. This is not just Georgia. This is for the nation. You may not like the way someone talks or someone tweets, the way they look. Ladies and gentlemen, I can take a mean tweet right now. I don't know about you. Okay? We have U.S. congressmen and sitting people, and the very candidate that's trying to be, well, will be the Democrat nominee, Stacey Abrams, during the riots, we pleaded with all leaders, Democrat, Republicans, everyone, when they were burning down Atlanta, please, would you please come out and say something? Now watch this. They were dead silent. Is that who you want to be your governor? Forget about the Democrat, Republican stuff. Let's get back to the common sense. Is that what you want? Do you want a candidate, he or she, that's not beholding to special interests and pay to play? Or do you want someone that wants to come in and serve the people? That person's David Perdue. It's been proven. The storm that wiped out all the farmers down in South Georgia. Him and his cousin Sonny rolled up their sleeves and got that money and took care of this farm. Bam, just like that. Deepening the ports. They begged President Trump, hey, can I have some of that money to dig the ports for Savannah? David Perdue. Solid voting record. Opportunity zones he voted on. Uplifting underserved communities. David Perdue's record speaks for itself. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we need David Perdue in the Gold Dome. I'm done.
I'm Marcy McCarthy, and I'm the chairman of the DeKalb County Republican Party, and I'm pleased to be here with you tonight. Hello, Georgia. Are we ready to vote David Perdue as our next governor? I can't hear you. Yes. Are we ready for the red wave? I don't think it's a red wave. It's a red tsunami. And it is full of the MAGA voters out there who are the silent majority. We are here to vote in David Perdue. And that's going to happen tonight. It might be a runoff. But let me just tell you little reasons why I'm up here tonight with all of you. I got inspired to become and get elected as the second bluest county chairwoman. Yes. And as Bruce Lavelle says, it's a thankless job. But let me just tell you, in less than a year, several of my candidates are here. We have 25 of them on the ballot where we have no representation in the Gold Dome whatsoever. We're here because we care. We're here because we're Americans. And in 2020, many of us saw something, we said something, and many people called us liars. We testified in front of the state Senate, the state House. We asked to be heard because we did not trust our elections and the outcome of them. We cannot undo our elections of 2020, but we can fix the future. We can restore fitness, faith, integrity, and trust in our elections, and vote David Perdue as our next governor. Let me tell you a little bit about the red tsunami that's coming to Georgia and the second bluest county in Georgia. In 2018, we had 8 Democrats voting for every Republican. In 2022, we cut that number in half. We have 4 Democrats voting for every Republican. Yes, we have done it in less than a year because people are mad. They are pissed off. You're absolutely right. We are getting calls from Democrats that are saying, how do I pull a Republican ballot? We have 3 school board members up for election tonight because the Democrats in power, and Stacey Abrams wants to say that the DeKalb County has the best schools, and we have some of the worst schools in the state. Our schools have mold. They have raw sewage running through them. And let me tell you, our current governor in charge, is letting that still happen. Our children are going to school in places that are health hazards and condemned. And our constitutional officers have done nothing. Overall, we need to keep Georgia red, but not just the red that is the rhino. It is the red that is the MAGA. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rich Thompson, and I'm just going to cut right to the chase. I'm here because I support David Perdue, as well as all that you do. Now, I've had a couple of interviews, kind of like Bruce, and some people ask me, so, well, why are you supporting David? And I said, well, it's real simple. I always support the best man for the job, pure and simple. Now, I recall going back 8 years ago, because everybody has an aha moment, right, where you just like know that you know that you know. I had a friend who arranged for me to go have a 15-minute conversation with David, just so I could get to know him because he was running for the United States Senate. That 15-minute conversation turned into about 45 minutes of conversation. We talked about everything from God to family. We talked about education policy. We talked about the economy. We talked about foreign trade. We talked about all this in the context of a first-time meeting. And that's when I had my aha moment. That's when I knew that that was the guy that I wanted to represent me in the United States Senate. Now, fast forward a couple of years, I've had another aha moment. Because to quote a famous general, there's 2 parties now. There's traitors and there's patriots. Bottom line, Georgia has a problem. I count David Perdue among the rank of the patriots. And it's for that reason that I will boldly stand before you, God, the entire world, and say we support him because we know we can count on him. We trust him for what he has done, and we trust him for what he's going to do to make this state great again. So I don't want to talk all night, but I want to let you know that we're all here for the right reason, and we've been out making phone calls and knocking on doors and writing checks and doing all the things it takes to help get a campaign to this point. And by golly, we're here. And so after tonight, I look forward to taking it to the next step with each one of you and standing alongside my good friend, David Perdue. Y'all have a good evening. Enjoy tonight.
Happen again, Jesse.
I agree. You can't really leave it up to individual school.
All right, we're back here live in Atlanta, Georgia at the David Perdue for Governor. Liz Willis, Brian Glenn here as we continue to have coverage here at the watch party. And we just heard a couple announcements from some earlier speakers, kind of, I guess, Liz, going over the reasons why they're here, and then why they think David Perdue needs to be in the Golden Dome,
Yeah.
which I learned, by the right now, is
I have
not
never
from.
heard that either. I've never heard that either. So that's actually, like, I guess, where they work. And then it's different because I actually live down the street in Buckhead, the lovely city that they talked about,
Right.
where everyone's getting murdered. But I live down the street from the governor's mansion. So it's a very nice
Yeah.
mansion. I drove past it today. Very calm and quiet. I don't know if they're celebrating there or what, but it's a beautiful house. And it's right in the heart of Buckhead, which is the city. It's also so controversial because what Buckhead's trying to kind of secede from the city of Atlanta, where our mayor, Keisha Lansbottom, has done nothing to help fight the crime that's been going on.
And that was one of the things they talked about here was the crime in Georgia, not just, in Atlanta, but across the whole entire state. Okay, let's go over some of the numbers. You have some updates we want to pass along to you.
do.
Some people have their race absolutely projected and called, and some people, right now, it's too close to call.
Yeah, and it's crazy because every website that you look at is a little different. But just a couple of the House districts that stand out to me that President Trump has endorsed a candidate in. I'll read some of those out to you. So we have President Trump did endorse Jake Evans. He's running in District 6, that's H6, for the state of Georgia right now with 14% in. He's got 23% of the vote, and that is second place to R. McCormick, who currently has 38% of the vote. So President Trump's endorsement for House 6 is in second place right now with 14% in. Scrolling on down, we've got House District 10, which has been a very highly contested race for the state of Georgia. That is the one that Vernon Jones is in. He's got President Trump's endorsement, and my screen just decided to
Freeze up.
Yep. All right, so Vernon Jones right now, President Trump's endorsed candidate for District 10 with 12% of the vote in, is in third place. Leading that district right now is Mike Collins with 31.6% of the vote in, or 31.6% of the votes for him at only 12% in, Mike Collins. Second place, who is someone I'm not familiar with, but Dee Curry actually has 18% in, so that's roughly 2,000 votes. And then Vernon Jones, Trump's endorsement, is in third place right now. Again, 12% in. I feel like I have to reiterate that because that's a huge factor to account for some of this. It's really early on in the night, and we've seen what happens when news networks call things too early.
Well, I just got a push notification that CNN has called Herschel Walker, projected him the winner in his race, which
that makes sense.
So you and I Herschel runs for 30, first down and 10 Bulldogs. So yeah,
that
there you
was
go.
Spot on.
So he is going to be the projected winner in his race, and I was looking earlier at Marjorie Taylor Greene up in the northwest corner of the state.
I think we can just about call it for her. She's 7% in. I'm not going to call it, so I'm joking, but she's got roughly 70% of the vote. So she is the incumbent for House District 14 and at 70% in.
And let's talk about the road that she's been on.
Oh,
I mean, she had a full-out assault to get her removed from even being on the ballot. And, of course, we were there, and we carried those trials here in Atlanta on that. So, and that's been some of the tactics that the left has tried to do to candidates like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like Mike Gaetz, like Matthew Cawthorn, Madison Cawthorn, rather, going after these guys to try to take them off the ballot.
Tell me this.
Altogether.
Would you run for an office right now,
you
knowing
gotta
what they do to candidates?
Yeah, it is pretty insane.
I'll tell you, I couldn't do it.
When they say politics is a dirty business, they're not lying at all. But it's nice to see that Marjorie Taylor Greene has taken off, hugely successful and popular in her district. Such an American first candidate. We've spent a lot of time with Marjorie Taylor Greene on the road in D.C. You were in the D.C. jail on the January 6th.
Let's clarify why I was in jail,
outside the
Brian.
jail, right? But she's a fighter, and I think there's one woman that can take the spears that are thrown at her. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene. She could take the hits.
Oh yeah, she is. She's tough. So going back, we have roughly 830,000 votes still remaining that still have to come in. So we're at 17% in. This is the Georgia Republican primary results for Georgia governor. Kemp is currently at 74.4%. Perdue trailing with 21%. So Kemp has had a really strong lead at the beginning, but again, we only have 17% in. I'm really hoping for Perdue to come up and be a second half team here and see what we can pull out.
And I don't know what it is in Georgia. I know that in Pennsylvania, the rules there that you could not begin to count the mail-in ballots until the day of the election. That's why it took so long to get some of these counties counted, these higher population areas counted, is because they couldn't count the mail-in ballots until the day of the election. I don't know if that's the case here, and Georgia, we'll find out. But we have a long night ahead of us, and there's a very small percentage that is reported so far. So we have seen historically those numbers reverse. So, it's something to keep an eye on. Just because someone might be getting beat early on doesn't necessarily mean that trend's going to continue.
You're absolutely right. Great point. And I hope that's the case as well for Georgia's Secretary of State, because Raffensperger is currently in the lead at 51.6%, followed closely.
Now, that's surprising right there.
It's shocking. It's shocking because he, without question, is just an...
Let's talk about that for a second. If there's one word, if there's one name that Mike Lindell throws out so much, it is Raffensperger, and what the things that he did not do in terms of the 2020 election. So I ask you, the viewer, right now, what is Georgia thinking, keeping this guy around right now?
I think Georgia, a lot of them are still sleeping. We think it's obvious what's been going on. We look at bills that are passing. We look at what these politicians are doing, but the average American's not really doing that. They see what the media wants them to see, and they see that Kemp is just fine, docile. Raffensperger doesn't really make headlines unless you're listening to Right Side Broadcasting Network or someone that's really getting down to the nitty-gritty of what's going on in these elections.
So you're saying like the average voter is not as engaged in the details than they should be. They kind of highline everything and go, well, my life...
It's changing. It's changing, and that's what we want to see. We can see it here tonight, and we can see what goes on in the midterms. But I think that Georgia's a great state to watch and kind of use as a prediction for how the midterms are going to go, because we're a highly contested seat right now. I never thought Georgia would be a swing state, but we are. Yeah. And it could go either way tonight.
And by the way, Stacey Abrams is running on the Democratic side, and she has been declared the projected winner because no one else is running against her. And I will say this: I think the last thing I checked,
she thinks she's the incumbent governor.
So. She had just over 118,000 votes, and I tried to see what in comparison to the number of people who were turning out on the Democratic side versus the Republican side. And I know, Liz, that in Pennsylvania, it was almost a 3-to-1 ratio. More Republicans turned out to vote than Democrats did. And
that's
so
what we want to see.
That's what we want to see.
People getting involved, being energetic, going out to polls. That energy is what's going to allow us to win elections, and that's so important.
And one of the gentlemen earlier said the key here is to beat Stacey Abrams in the general, and a lot of these people feel that David Perdue is the guy to do that, and perhaps Brian Kemp is not the guy to beat Stacey Abrams in the general election. That's why it's so important that
Very worrisome.
Yes, we got to get these America First candidates in there, and not just here. Let's turn our attention over to Arkansas. We have Sarah Huckabee Sanders vying for the Republican nominee for governor there. From what I say, she's got that all locked up. I wouldn't say that she's a projected winner at this point, but early on numbers said that she was highly favored to win that race. Over my shoulder, we just had Attorney General Ken Paxton was on Fox News talking about the massacre in Texas. Now, he is on a massive runoff in Texas for Attorney General. The last remaining Bush, Liz, is finally, this might be the end of the Bush regime here in this country if he is able to fight off a runoff from George P. Bush there in that race. So a lot's going on in Texas. Numbers were huge, by the way. I had gotten a phone call from my wife who had drove by a polling place, which, by the way, local time there in Dallas, just 7:06 Central Time. So they have wrapped up the polls there. So hopefully we'll get some numbers coming in from the races in Texas. But we're so glad you're joining us as we're live here in Atlanta, and we're in a very crowded room. It's a smaller room than I would expect, and there's a lot of press to our left, your right, and all around us and behind the camera. So we're in here. We're gonna continue to give you updates as we can. I know Liz is good about. I'm too old, so I got to put my glasses on to see my phone. Or
I'm right behind you. My vision is 2 out of 10, but I'm trying, you guys.
See if we have any updates.
Yeah, something really interesting. So 6 of the, I think, 14 districts races have been called for the state of Georgia already. Okay. And we know we want to be patient there, but those races are none of the ones that President Trump has gotten himself involved in. So it's interesting that the ones that there are the ones that are really just waiting to call it. But it looks like District 1, House District 1, with only 28%, was called for B. Carter, the incumbent. House District 3 was called for D. Ferguson, incumbent. House District 5 was called for Z. Sim at only 22%, and 8 running unopposed was A. Scott, incumbent. Again, for 11 and 12, called for Loudermilk and Allen. So 6 races called for Georgia House. And let's see what else we got here. As I scroll through my phone back to the Senate race, it's worth looking at. Democrats are going to have Raphael Warnock running for re-election.
Saw that.
And it looks like projected winner, NBC News, is Herschel Walker. So that is a major victory for Republicans, Herschel Walker, and probably some Trump rallies back in the state of Georgia.
I can think that we're going to be coming back here before too long. It's interesting because a lot of criticism they had for Herschel Walker is that he was such an outsider with absolutely zero public service in terms of an elected official, and that he started so high at the top. Like, he didn't start as a council member in his hometown or anything like that.
And I've never seen numbers like this. Look at this. He had 121,000. They called it only 18% in.
Yeah.
Second place has 25,000.
Yeah.
The difference there is huge.
Can we say that Herschel Walker had a great offensive line and ran for 100 yards in that game? My second football drop here tonight. But, I mean, to his point, though, hugely successful, great story, a legend here in Georgia.
Absolutely.
And, you know, he's like, and you know what? President Trump has really paved the way for outsiders to come into politics. And regardless of your resume, regardless of how many times you've had a public office, and which, by the way, we've seen people start off at school boards. We've got several people that watch this network here that have texted me and said, look, I heard you guys last year talk about if you want to get involved and change your world, get involved in the school board. And Liz, we've had a couple of people email me, and I know one that's ran in Dripping Springs, Texas. You've got to get involved and run. Herschel Walker started at the top.
Yeah.
In the Senate race, but he is now the projected winner.
Guy, someone that I don't do sports. No stranger to that. Every camera guy is like nodding his head. But you don't have to be involved in sports to know that Herschel Walker is just an incredible American, and Georgia boy is what we call him. But what he's done for rural Georgia, what he's done for his hometown, he's given his heart and soul back to that place, and they need it. There's a lot of poverty down there. It's where my family is from, so it means a lot to me. He always has. And before politics was even something we'd consider for Herschel Walker, he was always brought up at dinner tables, at family reunions, and I've never heard a negative word about him.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see what the liberals decide to do, how they're going to run with Herschel, but how they can hate on someone that's done so much for people that need help.
But you know,
I couldn't do it, but I'm so proud of him.
I am too, but I am very surprised how much of a lead right now that Kemp has over Perdue. I know it's early on, and I don't know the exact counties that have been reporting. Some of these counties outside of Atlanta might be a little bit stronger for Perdue when you get outside of this county here. But when you think about the 2020 election and who was really kind of standing in the way of any kind of election integrity in this particular state, it was Brian Kemp. And it's really interesting to see maybe just how disengaged some voters are in the grand scheme of things. Maybe people look at their lives and go, you know what, okay, gas is a little bit more expensive, I get it. Okay, I have a decent, maybe the COVID what was the COVID lockdowns like here in Georgia? I mean, walk me through.
They weren't bad. And I think that's why Kemp is getting some credit. A lot of my friends are saying, well, he was one of the first governors to get rid of lockdowns. So I'd say he handled that pretty well, actually, despite a lot of criticism. It's mostly the election integrity, his lack to acknowledge what went on in our election, his lack to at least call a special session. He hasn't acknowledged 2,000 mules. And Perdue wants to get rid of the state income tax, so I'm all about that.
I don't know who would be against that.
Honestly, say less. Say less, you have my vote.
That's your platform right there. That's
like
interesting because, we kind of, following President Trump like we do, and we see the messaging coming out of the Trump camp, it's always been about, finding out what happened in 2020. And I know a lot of people say, well, move on, and let's move on to Alabama, Mo Brooks. And we remember we were there at the rally in Alabama when Mo Brooks got on stage and said, look, let's move past 2020. Let's look ahead. And you know what, Liz, you were there. He got booed.
Yeah.
And when I say booed, it was 20, 30,000 people telling him to get the hell off the stage. And so I think that was the catapult to getting the Trump endorsement reversed on Mo Brooks. I haven't got an update on that race right now, but Mo Brooks obviously still a hugely successful candidate for his position, but we'll see what a reversal does on a Trump endorsement, because it's huge. Usually, a candidate gets endorsed by Trump, you can just lights out.
Yeah.
He gets elected, but unless you say something really stupid during the campaign season, and that could happen.
You're absolutely right, and I'm still watching this. Looks like we have 20% in for the Republican primary for governor. Kemp still very far in the lead at 73%. Perdue second, right behind him at 22%. Estimated remaining votes is 800,000. It's only 20% in, and it is still too early to call for the Georgia governor's race. So moving on, I want to check on the House because those numbers are moving quickly. 8 of the Dems House races have been called so far, still just 6 for the Republican House races. And back to the ones that President Trump has had us interested in. It looks like we've got Jake Evans running in House 6. He's at 23% in second place to R. McCormick, who has 38% in. And then we move over to House 10, which is a big upset right now, it looks like, for President Trump's endorsement, Vernon Jones, who's in second place with 17% of the votes. First place right now with 15% of the votes in is Mike Collins at 32% of the vote, almost double that of the second place candidate. And Marjorie Taylor Greene in House 14 at 70% of the vote. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think she's got that one locked down.
I think she's got that locked down. Behind us, they were just giving an update on Pennsylvania. If you recall, Dr. Oz, 31.2. Dave McCormick, 31.1. So they're going to still continue to count votes there. I've heard several.
Very convenient, but.
Yeah, and what's interesting, I heard somebody say, this is really funny the other day, that American Idol can count all of the nationwide vote in one episode in an hour, but we need weeks and weeks and weeks to count the votes.
Look at France.
And,
they were able to do
thing.
that, the whole country in one day. Oh my gosh, I would love that. My anxiety would love that. I hate when these races go on.
Well, I think what
and
happens,
on.
Liz, is that the attorneys get involved in all of this. And, McCormick will send 100 attorneys down to Pennsylvania, and they'll go into every district, every county, and they'll want to recount, which obviously, if it's within a certain margin of victory, it's automatically onto a recount. That's just that's just what they do. So we knew this was going to happen, but that it may be June, maybe the end of June, maybe the 1st of July before we hear an actual winner there. Let's turn our attention real quickly to Texas. Attorney General Ken Paxton in a runoff against Abe Bush, and right now with about 64% of the vote, Paxton has a pretty much a commanding lead at 94,557 votes. To 55,947 votes. He's got a pretty good vote lead there in Texas. I anticipate Ken Paxton to close that out here shortly as they continue to go down in that. Now let's see. There's another heated race along the border there, Liz, and of course immigration's a huge thing, as we all know. The border crisis going down there in Eagle Pass, and there's several counties right now that are finding Democrats that are up for re-election, going through their primaries, or you've got two sides of it. You've got one Democrat that wants to absolutely get rid of ICE and get rid of the Border Patrol altogether, wide open borders, just willy-nilly, come on in. And then you have some Democrats that they want to finish the wall. And it's really interesting to see a Democrat along the southern border advocate for finishing the wall, and I think they're smart. If I was a Democrat running for office along these counties on the border, Liz, I'm absolutely being pro-border, pro-security, because that's what your constituents in those districts want, and you shouldn't bow down to what the people in Washington are telling you what your stance should be on immigration and border security when the facts are real. And by the way, Title 42, and that's just something that is monstrous in terms of the average amount of people coming in right now, Liz, is about 9,647 people a day. Those are what the ones.
I wish I could just walk into the country.
That are the ones that we know about. Now, there's a lot of gotaways that we don't know about, but they said once this thing is dropped and released, it could be projected, get this, up to 200,000 people a day across the border.
I can't believe
that's
it.
building the base. But see, that's building the Democratic
also
base.
Dangerous.
It's very dangerous, but they've been very open in saying that's exactly what they want to do. They want to build their voting base, and that's the way they do it.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. Speaking of which,
Okay.
I really wanted to get a sample ballot so I could get these questions like spot on. But as you know, I can't. When I was in my polling precinct earlier today, I couldn't have my cell
take a
phone
picture.
out, any of that. But
That's one way to get escorted out, right?
And trust me, I almost did. My brother and I got to go and vote together. So you can only imagine like how kind of humorous that was. They were trying to like push us through, and we're like, excuse me, no. Like we're sitting here and we're reading this language. We want to know the political jargon.
yeah.
We wanted to know all of the questions.
Especially those provisional questions.
That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
we got the craziest questions in the state of Georgia today. And if any of you are Georgia watchers, Georgia voters watching this, you know what I'm talking about. I'm paraphrasing, but the first one was like, there is some danger at the southern border, and the Biden administration has quit building the wall. Is this something that we should be concerned about? Yes or no? Having an open border. Should we care? Yes or no? Another one was about boys going into girls' restrooms, whether or not we should care about that. Another one, I'm blanking, and I had them all written down. Restrooms, school choice, that was kind of important. It said, should the money follow the kids, basically, or should the kids go to like the state-funded schools, if that makes sense. And I put, I think kids should be able to go wherever they want. School choice. Whew. And so another. Yeah, these were like, I was just reading them, and he was next to me, and I thought we were going to get kicked out because we were laughing. We were genuinely laughing at these questions. Another one was, Florida recently passed legislation banning social media companies from interfering and censoring politicians. Should Georgia follow suit and do something like this?
Interesting. Obviously, yes.
You're asking us if we want freedom of speech.
Once again,
you're asking us if we should like ban certain politicians because we don't agree with them. Absolutely not. If someone came to me and said, "Hey, if you want me to, I'll ban Biden across all platforms," it'd be funny. But would I do it? No, because it goes against all of my core beliefs,
right?
And everything that really America was founded on. So those were the questions I got asked, and it's scary. It is scary. Not.
Hang on. Okay, we're going to have to probably, it looks like we're going to have to put one mic on the podium. I don't know if we need to do that. We don't need to do that.
So
okay, we're both. We're good. Just want to make sure. Let's step aside, Liz, and kind of show the scene here. We are live here in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Sheraton down here in the Galleria area, and we're in a small room with about 100 of our closest friends at this point. There's quite a few people in here, Liz, and this has been one of those situations where we knew it was going to be possibly a long night.
Yeah.
We knew that it was going to be, this is a very heated race. I mean, Liz, all eyes are on Georgia on this particular race.
And it looks like we might have an announcement coming soon. The way people
it does
are
look like
filing
we have a few more people.
They're announcing for you to get your mics up on the podium. You're good. So let me check on over. It looks like.
See if the numbers have changed in the last few minutes. We want to remind everybody we are live here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'll tell you what. If now's the time to go support one of the greatest patriots that we know right now, that is the great Mike Lindell over at mypillow.com, mystore.com as well. He has been patriot number one of the greatest modern day patriots we've had in our political culture here in America, and go support him over at mypillow.com. Put that promo code RSBN at checkout and get up to 66% off your entire order. He has been the tip of the spear in terms of election integrity, of finding out the truth in the 2020 election, and he has done his due diligence in hiring experts and put his own money on the line. So let's go try to reward him as well. So I want everybody to support the great Mike Lindell. Those towels, the Giza sheets, the dog beds, the slippers, you got them all. mypillow.com, mystore.com. Liz, you got some more updates?
I just quickly want to say I don't know where we'd be without him. Every time we mention his name, it's just what a blessing he has been to Right Side Broadcasting Network. So please consider going to support Mike Lindell. Again, what you're watching here really quickly, before I get into the numbers and the statistics, people are kind of starting to fill in this room. It's getting tighter and tighter. It looks like we are waiting for an announcement, possibly from David Perdue himself. However, it looks like it is still too early to call it right now. Kemp in the lead at for the Georgia gubernatorial election with 24% of the vote in. Looks like we're still waiting on 757,000 votes to come in, but as I was reading that, NBC News called it for Kemp as the projected winner.
Okay, well, that's breaking right now.
So
and maybe that's why this group has assembled in here right now, Liz. Is there maybe anticipating making some kind of statement about this? And this is really surprising. I got to be honest with you. We've covered a lot of these elections, and we've covered the road to the governorship in many states. And right now, this is very surprising to see this type of lead so far.
Yeah, I mean, I'm shocked as a Georgia voter, but I'm still holding out hope. Plenty of hope to be had. And I'm still looking at some of the other races that President Trump has endorsed candidates in. House District 6, Jake Evans, President Trump's endorsement, is in second place with 23% of the vote, to R. McCormick, who's in the lead with 38% of the vote, 15% still in there. House District 10, it looks like there is roughly the same lead. House District 10, Mike Collins is in first place at 30%. That's roughly 6,000 votes for Georgia District 10. Second place is now Vernon Jones, who President Trump has endorsed for House District 10. Vernon Jones has 19%, so it's roughly 10% less than Mike Collins, who's in first place. And that 19% equates to about 4,000 votes. So he's about 2,300 votes behind Mike Collins. And finally, Marjorie Taylor Greene in District 14 with 40% of the votes in at 71%. So as far as House districts go, Marjorie Taylor Greene is by far the most popular choice. And then to Secretary of State, which is really interesting, still says NBC News that it is too early to call, and that is Raffensperger at 50% to Jody Heiss, who President Trump has endorsed, at 33.5% in. So that is 24% of the expected vote. Still waiting on 759,000 votes for Georgia Secretary of State. A very important race there. And I'm looking on it for those of you who are just now tuning in. It looks like we have projected winner for the Republican primary for Senate, and that's Herschel Walker. He was the projected winner at only 24% of the vote. He will be challenging Raphael Warnock, the Democratic nominee for Georgia Senate. Looks like CNN just called it for Kemp as well. So we can expect David Perdue to take the stage here shortly. It looks like that's what we're expecting. They made an announcement here to get your microphones, and it looks like the announcement's right now.
Looks like we're about to do a sound check right now. Let's see if... There we go with the heads up.
T-minus 1 minute.
T-minute, about 1 minute for him to come out. So let's see what he has to say about tonight and how we move forward from here.
Yeah, I want to know. I'm pretty anxious to find out if he's going to support Kemp, if Kemp is ultimately the winner of tonight's primary.
Good question. Once again, we are live here in Atlanta, Georgia at the David Perdue Watch Party here. Thanks for joining us. As always, you can follow us on social media. Go to our website, rsbnetwork.com, rsbnetwork.com. And make sure you follow and subscribe to us on all of our channels: Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Getter, Truth Social. We're across the board there for our continual coverage here in Georgia. Programming note, we will be carrying President Trump's rally in Casper, Wyoming this Saturday. Liz, Willis, myself will be live in the beautiful state of Wyoming, bringing that coverage to you. It looks like the door is open. Stand by for some remarks from David Perdue.
Hey guys. Well, I hope everybody made dinner reservations within a few minutes, but I've got some bad news and good news for you. First of all, I want to thank you for being here tonight. I want to thank you for being involved. I want to thank you for loving our state and loving our country. I've seen more emotion in the last 6 months than I've seen really in my career of people who really do care. And so I'm going to call on that tonight, but it looks pretty obvious right now. I just called the governor, and I congratulated him. And I want you to do the same thing. Right now, what we've got to do is face the reality that Bonnie and I made a decision when we decided to do this, that we trusted the people of Georgia. And we prayed a lot about it, and we thought about not doing this. I tried not to do it. And honestly, there's a reason why we, I think, did it, or had to do it. But here's the bottom line. We trust the people of Georgia, and we did it knowing that we were going up against an incumbent governor. And, you know, everything I said about Brian Kemp was true, but here's the other thing I said was true. He is a much better choice than Stacey Abrams. And so we are going to get behind our governor. Bonnie, I committed to him right now what Jack Kingston committed to me back in 2014, and that is there's nothing they can ask me to do that I won't do. We're going to do everything we can to make damn sure Stacey Abrams doesn't take over the state and let the woke mob take over our beloved children and grandchildren. So I want you to know tonight that I am fully supporting Brian Kemp in his run to beat Stacey Abrams. He's a fellow Republican. And I'm going to tell you, the failed Democrat platform right now is so obvious on the federal level, we don't want it to come to Georgia. And this is what I'm telling you tonight. It's emotional for all of us. We're disappointed. I get that. Let's take a few hours, lick our wounds, and tomorrow morning, you're going to hear me going to work for Brian Kemp to make damn sure that Stacey Abrams is never governor of Georgia. The last thing I'll say is I want to thank you guys again. I see new friends. I see old friends. And this is so encouraging to me that so many people who have not been involved in politics have gotten in politics, not just in my race, but last May, 2/3 of the people who went to the Republican GOP convention in Jekyll Island, it was the first time they'd ever done anything in politics. Now, guys, that's incredible. I was in Union County last week, or over the weekend. A year ago, they had 80 members. Union County, Blairsville. You all know where that is. It's hard to get up there, but we were up there, and we had probably had 150 at a Saturday morning meeting, and a year ago they had 80 members. They had 390 members right now. That's what's happening in this state. I can't explain these results. They're counter to what I saw around the state, but I am absolutely, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but what we're going to do right now is we're going to make sure Stacey Abrams is not governor of the state. God bless you guys. Thank you for being here. We love you guys. Thank you.
Well, there you go. A few remarks from David Perdue. And I got to say, Liz, I whispered to you earlier during this, I thought that was a very classy way to kind of wrap up his run here in Georgia. And he said, you know, come Monday morning, he's going to focus on beating Stacey Abrams in the general election. And Liz, you and I both looked at each other and said, I don't know we need a better way to go from here. I mean, that's just what you do. You focus on ultimately winning in November. And he said on Monday he's gonna take a couple days to lick his wounds, and then become Monday morning he's gonna go ahead and focus on beating Stacey Abrams and helping Brian Kemp do that.
I think that was one of the just most kindest and humble concession speeches I have ever heard in my life. And quite frankly, it's kind of sad because you can tell what a genuinely good person he is. But I'm impressed. I don't know if I'd have it in me to get behind Kemp and support him, endorse him, but that's just what David Perdue just did. He led that speech with, I just called the governor, and I congratulated him.
Yeah, that's how he led the speech. Good point, Liz.
I was worried. I'm thinking, what are we going to do if it's a House divided right now? And if we don't get behind Kemp, then what? We just give the election? We give Georgia's governorship to Stacey Abrams? I mean, that's awful.
We can't do that. So if you live here in the great state of Georgia, he's telling you what to do, is to get behind Brian Kemp and make sure that Stacey Abrams does not win that general election. We do want to go over a few more races that we've been following here today. I know that you've got some updates on your phone. Let's go over those real quick.
So I'm still looking at the Georgia Republican primary results for the districts, for the congressional districts, and I'll just repeat some of the ones we were talking about earlier. House 6 with Jake Evans, he's still in second place, with Orrin McCormick in the first place. And in House District 10, Vernon Jones is still in second place. That is the Trump-endorsed candidate at 4,000 votes. The first place right now, who I think is looking like going to win that, is Mike Collins. He's got 30% of the vote in and has 6,300 votes for Georgia 10. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene just absolutely killing it, 72% of the votes in.
Yeah.
Really something also interesting and worth watching for, let's see what's going on here, but Secretary of State, that's something we've both discussed a lot today. Georgia Secretary of State was a hugely important election. Still says too early to call. 50% Raffensperger, 33% to Jody Heiss, who is President Trump's endorsed candidate there. So interesting, and we want to encourage everyone to make sure that you stay tuned to all of our social media for the remainder of the night as some of these races continue to finalize throughout the night. All of our social medias are a great way to stay up to date with anything breaking news. You can follow us on Twitter at RSB Network, on Getter at RSB Network, and on Truth Social at RSBN.
Yep. And then turning our attention over to Arkansas, I know Sarah Huckabee Sanders is up for the gubernatorial race there. She is projected to win Arkansas, which is really no surprise to either one of us. Attorney General Kemp in Texas is projected. I mean, I'm just looking at the numbers here. A huge advantage right now, getting about 66% of the vote right now. Looks like he's going to beat Bush in that runoff. And then, of course, Dr. Oz is still in Pennsylvania. Him and Dave McCormick are still going toe-to-toe. We'll see what happens.
Can you imagine that?
No, I can't imagine.
What was their election night coverage? Imagine the media. Were they just there all night until they figured, hey, we're going to need another 2 weeks?
We need another 2 weeks. I will say this. Doug Mastriano, who Trump got behind just days before the election, won his nomination on the Republican side by a landslide. So Doug Mastriano, absolutely a very MAGA, ultra MAGA, you can almost call him, American First candidate. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does in the general in Pennsylvania, and we'll have our eyes on that as well. And let's give a shout out real quickly. You didn't know I was going to do this. To Mike Crispy.
You took the words out of my mouth.
See?
I literally was going to say New Jersey coming up. I think we're a week or 2 weeks out. What a race to watch.
Yeah, and you want to talk about a guy who came out of the sector that we're in right now. He's got he's a business guy. He did some shows. He got a podcast. He's got a great show that we had here on Right Side, Red, White, and Truth. And he decided he wanted to make a difference in his district in New Jersey. So he stepped out and ran. And you know what, Liz, he could win.
I think he's going to win. Listen to this. In the past week, he's had Roger Stone. He got Wendy Rogers, Carrie Lake, Rudy Giuliani, General Flynn, those incredible endorsements, as well as the support of the people of New Jersey District 4. He's doing remarkably well for a political newcomer, and he's going up against Rhino Chris Smith, who's been in the business for 42, and I say business because he's not a politician. He's not doing it for the people. He's been in this for 42 years. That is too long. Get out. Get someone fresh in there that's willing to fight for America First values, and that's what Mike Crispy is wanting to do.
You and I know his personality, and I know that if he was to get in office and go to Washington, if you live in his district in New Jersey, we can both write our names and guarantee you that he is going to fight for people, because he does not back down.
On your bad side.
You don't want, and he's very professional, but he's very sharp tongued, and so we want to wish him luck as well as he's coming up on his programming note. Like I said earlier, Liz and I will be in Casper, Wyoming this Saturday for President Trump's rally there in Wyoming. A few more, I think, are going to be announced here in the short day, so we'll keep up to date on all of our social media as President Trump's on the campaign
convention.
NRA convention
in Houston. That is on the 24th. So we're looking forward to bringing you President Trump's speech from that as well.
Yeah, and once again, our thoughts and prayers go out to all of the families affected by the shooting earlier today in Uvalde, Texas, just in South Texas along the border there. Confirmed dead, obviously, multiple casualties and children and adults. So we want to thoughts and prayers on that and continue to pray for that. And I would imagine that conversation is now going to be injected into the political discussions of gun control and the need for gun control, and that's going to be the pounding of the drum probably until we get to November. But I heard a great stat the other day, Liz, and I think I told you this earlier. Out of all the gun mass shootings we've ever seen, not one NRA card holder has done it. These are can I say, I almost slipped up. These are punks. These are disgusting, demonic people.
Ill.
Yes, they're not card holders of the NRA. So let's get that clear. It's not rifle gun owners. But that is a great program note for Friday. We'll be live in Houston for that. And then, of course, on Saturday, we'll be in Casper, Wyoming. And then follow us on True Social and Getter. I mean, let's go ahead and give our handles out for people that want to. We'll continue to push out these notifications throughout the night.
Absolutely. Our network is at RSB Network on Getter and Twitter, and on True Social, it's just at RSBN. Our personal ones on Twitter is at Liz Willis, and on Getter it's at Liz Willis. Truth Social, it's at Liz. I'm sorry, I made it difficult, but you're at Brian Glenn TV across all platforms.
Yeah,
right?
and then at Brian on Truth Social. We got kind of lucky on Truth Social. We got in there really, really early, and I was able to get just to at Brian. So it makes it really
too cool
simple.
not to do it, right?
It's cool. There's only one at Liz in the whole entire world.
I
That's
feel
you.
like it should go to his press
Well,
deputy.
you would give it up. You would
If
willingly
she asked
give that
for
up.
it, I would give it to
Yeah,
her,
and I would
of
give it
course.
up to anybody else at Brian. But we're so glad you're joining us tonight. Once again, share this broadcast as it's over. And tag a friend, because Liz, you and I meet a lot of people throughout our career and going to different states and different cities. And people, we want to make sure that people get the information that we have. So tell a friend, tag them in a conversation, tell them about Right Side.
Yeah, and come out to a rally. If we're at a city near you, make the trip. I've never met anyone who regrets it.
Yeah.
It's so cool to come to a President Trump rally. There's nothing like it, and I recommend you guys come out, support RSBN, support President Trump and the candidates that he's worked so hard to endorse and to fight for, those who put America first.
There we go, America first. All right, for Liz Willis, Brian Glenn here, as we sign off here in Atlanta, Georgia. Until next time, goodbye, God bless. We'll see everybody.